The scale of the looming economic crisis is hard to fathom. In Europe, like in much of the rest of the world, empty streets and shuttered shops show just how suddenly and dramatically business has ground to a standstill. National governments in the 19-member Eurozone have been introducing stimulus packages aimed at keeping businesses and their employees afloat. Now, another question has arisen: how to pay for it all? At present, each country in the Eurozone is responsible for its own debt. This means that a country with a poor credit rating like Italy has to pay a higher interest rate than a less indebted nation like Germany. The idea behind the so-called Corona bonds is to pool debt instead. This would ease borrowing costs for a country like Italy, but increase the burden for more creditworthy nations like Germany. The idea has predictably led to internal wrangling in the Eurozone, with Italy, France and Spain in favour of the plan, and Germany and the Netherlands against. And even if there were a consensus, experts say implementing such a scheme could take months or even years.
Back in the Chancellery. After 2 weeks in quarantine and 3 negative coronavirus tests, German Chancellor Angela Merkel made her return.
In my opinion, Europe, the European Union, is facing its biggest test since its foundation. Our populations are also facing a huge health challenge. All the EU member states are being affected on varying levels. We're all affected. And so it must be in everyone's interest, and it is in Germany's interest, that Europe should emerge strongly from this test.
As Merkel voiced her concerns for Europe on Monday, her government's crisis group agreed to institute a 2-week quarantine for people returning to Germany. From April 10th, all German nationals, EU citizens and other long-time residents who return after several days abroad will have to quarantine themselves for 14 days. There are, however, exceptions, including seasonal workers in agriculture, commuters travelling to work, truck drivers delivering goods, and, of course, medical professionals. Germany also announced on Monday the latest extension to its €1.1 trillion coronavirus crisis package, a guarantee of 100% loans to small and medium-sized businesses of up to €800,000. These Mittelstand companies are widely seen as the heart of the German economy.
Anyone who was economically active last year, those who registered turnover, those who recorded normal economic activity and made a profit, they can get 3 months' turnover as a loan from the bank, which in this case will be 100% financially underwritten by us. That means the banks will not have to do normal financial risk assessments. This 100% guarantee means the process will be completed very quickly.
Now, Germany's European neighbours too are looking to Berlin to see whether Merkel's concerns might also turn into financial support for them.
And here's DW correspondent Bernd Riegert explaining exactly the kind of financial support Germany's European neighbours are looking for.
9 European countries, among them Italy, France and Spain, are demanding common debt, Eurobonds or Corona bonds. But Germany and Austria and other wealthy countries say we cannot afford this to finance common Eurobonds or common debt because we don't know how we will come out of this unprecedented crisis. But many experts and economists here in Brussels say the 500 billion euros now on the table are not enough. You have to do more, come up with more money. And Italy is asking quite bluntly, what is the EU for if they cannot help us now?
DW political correspondent Hans Brandt joins me now from our parliamentary studios. Hans, what is the EU for if it cannot help us now? That's the cry from some countries. Angela Merkel acknowledges this is the biggest test the EU has ever faced. So how much pressure is there on Germany to contribute more money?
Yes, the pressure on Germany is huge. Also within the German political spectrum, there are many political parties and politicians here in Germany that are pushing the government, urging the government to agree to these corona bonds, as they are called. But we have to caution that it's not a matter of Germany giving money. We are talking here about loans that are to be issued and about Germany and other countries, all countries in the European Union, guaranteeing those loans. So it's not actually money that's being kind of pushed across the table. It's a guarantee for loans. But because the German economy is by far the strongest in Europe, if these loans should end up not being repaid or in some sense getting difficult, it will be Germany that ends up in some sense guaranteeing these loans together with other countries. So it's that guarantee that the Germans are concerned about. The German foreign minister and the economics minister have recently published opinion pieces in a series of European newspapers offering their alternative. They're saying that a common European stability mechanism, which is already in place, should be used, and that the rules for giving that money to various countries should be relaxed. So Germany is hoping, in some sense, to get out of this bind and still be able to help other countries.
Speaking of relaxations, the Chancellor also said it's too early to set a date for the relaxation of social distancing. Why is Germany not following Austria into issuing a timed program of dates for restrictions to be lifted?
Well, both Chancellor Merkel and members of her cabinet, for instance, the economics minister, only this morning have been stressing that it's much too early for Germany even to talk about a date when this might happen, when the relaxation might happen. They are emphasizing that the restrictions will remain in place at least until the 19th of April, in other words, 10 days or so, and only when that date approaches will they start talking about possible relaxations. It has to do with the fact that there's a feeling that the situation in Germany is not under control completely yet, and also with the fact that this is holiday times here in Europe, in Germany especially. There's the Easter weekend coming up, and one wants to discourage people from leaving their homes, from relaxing their guard, from letting down their guard, from meeting other people and so on. So under these circumstances, the feeling is that things have to remain under control and strictly controlled.
Hans Bratz speaking to us from our parliamentary studios. Thank you very much. Let's get you the latest developments related to the global coronavirus pandemic. China has reported no new deaths from the coronavirus over the past 24 hours. And the 32 new cases the country did report were people who returned from overseas. Israel has announced a complete lockdown over the upcoming Passover holiday. Here in Germany, the number of confirmed coronavirus infections has passed 100,000, the fourth highest caseload in the world. And Japan has declared a state of emergency in Tokyo and 6 other regions to combat the outbreak. Japan has nearly 4,000 confirmed cases of COVID-19 and 92 deaths from it. For more, I'm joined by journalist Sonia Blaschka in Tokyo. Sonia, what does a state of emergency mean in concrete terms?
It means that the governors have the authority to call on people to stay home and for businesses to close. However, they cannot give any penalties, and it's not like a European-style lockdown, so to speak. So people are still free to move. It's still basically more or less a very strong appeal. And if you compare it to Europe, the situation here is very different. Much less restricted. It's much more like regular life, and I'm hoping that with the state of emergency, this sense of crisis, so to speak, will change. And it affects the 2 main regions in Japan. It affects Tokyo and the greater Tokyo area with 35 million people, and also the greater Osaka and Kyoto area, actually for well over a month.
Right. Sonia, Japan initially seemed to be on top of the coronavirus response, but infections have surged recently. What went wrong?
Yes, indeed. I think in the beginning what helped was the proximity to China. There was a very early in the crisis a sense that people really need to take care, be careful and all that. Schools were closed relatively early. But I think because it kind of took so long and the number of infections stayed relatively low, people maybe forgot about it a little bit or started to get a little complacent. And then the cherry blossom season happened. We had a super nice weekend in March. A lot of people went to the parks despite pleas not to do so. And I think the results is what we're seeing now.
And Prime Minister Shinzo Abe has also announced a huge stimulus package. What can you tell us about that?
Yes, he has announced a stimulus package which amounts to 108 trillion yen, which is 916 billion euros. And it's equivalent to 20% of the Japanese economic output. Compared to Germany, Germany has invested around 5%. The goal is obviously to prevent a recession from happening and maybe just turn it into some sort of depression. They will give money to families whose income has dropped by over 50%. They will give them 300,000 yen.
Right.
That's about 1,400 euros, and also maybe around 80 euros per child. Then also money for companies, 2 million yen. So that's what the stimulus package more or less looks like.
Sonia Blaschke in Tokyo, thank you very much for that.
You're very welcome.